Please listen carefully.
Well, hello, universe, and welcome to the Optimist Daily Update. I'm Kristy Jansen.
And I'm Summers McKay.
And we're part of the team behind the Optimist Daily, making solutions the news. We bring you reader-funded solutions news every day in order to change the tenor of news media, social media, and the direction of your day to one focused on solutions.
7 days a week, we publish positive news stories written by award-winning journalists and delivered online to your inbox and through our social channels. And also, we are sharing these solutions in a commute-worthy, walk-worthy, home office-worthy, international mud day-worthy podcast. Today is Tuesday, the 29th of June, 2021. Hello, Kristy. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
I am well. I am very excited to celebrate International Mud Day. It's a great
You more
day.
than most will probably get the chance to play in the mud, right? Having a 2-year-old.
Yes. And she is going to play in the mud. I delivered her to school today in clothing that was intended to be muddy. They asked us to make sure to send our kids.
Only parents of small children really understand that it is International Mud Day.
Well, but I think more people should know this. Okay, so actually, it's like a sad but also funny story. When I was a little kid, I was picked on and bullied quite a bit in my elementary school, and I had the nickname Mud. And that sounds really terrible, except that there was this children's song called Muddy Mud Puddle Land, and I embraced this bullying and did a dance in a talent show for Muddy Mud Puddle Land. And I love mud. And I think that what the day is about, it came back from basically an intention for early childhood education and, interactions with Earth, right? It's kind of like Earth Day gone dirty for kids. Okay. And the point is to educate children about both healthy outdoor play as well as about the Earth that they play in. So it's like this lovely thing. But for me in particular, because my name was Mud and I fully own it, and I fully own that my name was Mud, I feel like it's kind of my day too.
Okay.
So.
International Summer's Day.
Exactly.
Got it.
It's right in the heat of summer when you're just you just need a hose to spray and mud to dig in. So anyway, that's what I'm super excited about today. What are you super excited about today?
Well, I'm really excited about the story I'm about to talk about, but I'm also really excited about a webinar that I got to participate in yesterday with Hazel Henderson and Kate Raworth. Just very interesting about expanding
for our
the
listeners,
notion.
who are those people and what was the conversation?
Hazel Henderson is an iconoclastic economist who for decades has been talking about how the whole notion that the economy is just about things that have a price on them and the market is ridiculous, because so much of our economy is built on things which are not paid, like where we live, how we take care of our kids, the domestic work we do. Not just that, but our community work that we do and sort of the participation there, the quotes love economy. And then there's also Mother Nature. Everything is built within the natural environment, right? And then Kate Raworth, who's sort of the next generation down, she's the one who came up with the idea of donut economics. We've written about that on the Optimist Daily. I think we'll do some updates on that concept coming up in the near weeks. And she's just this other brilliant thinker. And I just find it interesting that it's these women economists who are upsetting the whole idea of what qualifies as economics.
Right.
Because we know, you and I know, how much our lives are dictated by those things which are not part of the paid economy, and how much of a burden that can be for all of us. And they should be recognized. And it's really starting to come into the business world, because business happens in the real world. It's not theoretical models about the market and supply and demand, which are interesting, but they're very limited. It's a kind of tiny sliver of understanding. And when you expand the metrics to looking at health and well-being and what does it actually mean to have a thriving economy, GDP just does not cut it.
It's not the sole definition.
It's not. It's a tiny sliver of what goes into a functioning economy, a functioning society. So it was just a very interesting conversation to observe and participate in, and it inspires me. I like these kinds of ideas. These are these kinds of visioning exercises. And it's about our sustainability, it's about our security, and it's about building better communities for all of us. So that's where my head was at.
That's not your story that you're going to talk about, but you and Amelia got to both participate in and overhear that conversation yesterday, and I was really excited to learn about it. I think one of the things that at the Optimist Daily we do, right, we talk about a lot of fun solutions, but we really like to get into the meaty understandings of economics. And I am a total econ junkie, probably favorite subject. Should have, I don't know, maybe I should have been an economist in a different world, but I think that the upending of economic structures to recognize unpaid labor is so valuable for what our world looks like tomorrow.
Hazel Henderson describes economists as kind of blowhards, and I mean, as a field, she actually has very little respect.
I'm not gonna lie, like that's part of going into the economics world. Most of my, instructors were kind of blowhard guys, right?
And apparently they would take her book. She wrote the book, Politics in the Solar Age, which was getting beyond economics. She wrote that in the 80s, and it was really well received in certain communities, but in economic departments, they actually took it out of the library and threw it away because it so undermined the whole model of economics, which I found very, very amusing. She's now at 89 years old. She's one of the hottest economists out there because she was so visionary and so forward thinking. So she's one of my role models, I have to say.
I love it. Okay, well, I'm going to do my story because you take a breather for a second. Forewarn to everyone, the guy with the blower is back directly outside my window. So please, Amelia, forgive me. But my story is about economies being upended, and that economy is fast fashion. Down with fast fashion. So my headline reads, New ThreadUp survey shows the used clothing market is here to stay. According to a new report from ThreadUp, millennials and Gen Z consumers are demanding more sustainable products and would rather dig for gems in vintage products than purchase them from giant retail chains. So that we know, right? Like it's cool and trendy to find unique things, but is that sustainable? Is that going to happen? Is it going to keep going? Well, according to ThreadUp, 40% of thrifters are replacing their fast fashion purchases in favor of vintage and used clothing. In fact, the secondhand seller market is projected to overthrow the fast fashion industry, with secondhand clothing and resale expected to be twice as large by 2030, leaving chains like H&M and Zara in the dust. So if you're curious what fast fashion is, it's a lot of the very inexpensive clothing lines like H&M and Zara, and I don't even think Forever 21's still around, but stuff like that. So the report also found that 36 million people sold pieces from their own closets for the first time in 2020 because we were all home for the pandemic, looking at our closets going, get this out of here.
Yeah, exactly.
And 33 million shoppers made their first secondhand purchase, often online. So it's creating this entirely new, exciting marketplace. There's a bunch more data in there, but there's reasons behind this that include consumers wanting to have less of an ecological footprint in what they are purchasing. People also recognizing in many ways that they want to have a more dynamic closet, right? They might want to have fewer pieces that they are able to wear and sell and move through more often. It's almost like the world's library of clothing, kind of.
Exactly. It's sort of like that sharing economy where you're paying a smaller fee for clothes that you don't expect to keep for forever, but instead of throwing them away, you maybe sell them back into the market or donate them back into the market. I think you were talking about helping design like a clothing resource at your kids' daycare. Exactly.
Well, so at Brennan's school, my hope is that I can get all the parents kind of into a chain where we are basically, she has outgrown all of her 3Ts. She is, of course, 24 months or 23 months old and is in like teenager clothing. But I'm, moving into 4Ts so fast, and I have all of these 3Ts. I actually put on a pair of shoes that we had purchased that she'd never even worn. And I tried to put them on her yesterday, and she was too big for them. And they're these perfect size 7.5 shoes. Because guess what? I guess she's an 8 now. I don't know. So, but working with the parents to establish basically a clothing exchange where each item might cost a very small amount that either could be contributed back to the school if the seller so chose, or the seller could take that. But just like a really low cost, fun way for us to to have a clothing exchange right there at the school. So I'm looking to
Which
develop stuff like that, which I think is, for me, I don't have time to really get into a lot of, you know, like the Poshmark apps and stuff like that. I just don't, that isn't in my lifestyle. But I think something like a localized exchange would be very realistic for my
right.
lifestyle.
The idea that there's no such thing as waste, that there's always something else that can be done with those clothes. You don't throw them away, you either
Yeah.
sell them. And also, there's a lot of great value out there. One person's tired blouse is another person's, like, oh my God, this is such a cute outfit, right?
Right. Right.
And it can have its second life. And that's what the young people who are starting to really get into this market are saying. I love shopping at thrift stores. I've been doing it, and I'm definitely not a Gen Zer. My son is, but, but the other thing that you're
Yeah.
talking about with like creating that clothing exchange, and to me, that is a beautiful beginning into the story that I wanted to focus on, because
Yeah.
it's sort of building community around goods and around a community resource, which might be that clothing exchange at your daughter's daycare. And the article that I wanted to focus on is Norwegian co-housing encourages social connection and sustainable living. And this is an article about a co-housing development in Norway, which I think has a lot of lessons for us in today's world. And for me, somebody who grew up in more of a community setting than I've found myself in over this last year and a half, I think yesterday, Summers, you and I were talking about personally the isolation that I have found myself in. And I think a lot of us have found ourselves in throughout this last year, as we have been disconnected from people who were in our wider social networks in the effort to socially isolate from each other. And it's hard now getting back into a community engagement. I'm finding it hard to get out of the bubble that I've built around myself. It's
Yeah.
like it takes energy to break out of it. I have new routines, I have new patterns. And even though it's safe to socialize, at least to some extent, with people who are fully vaccinated, there's things like this new Delta variant. I don't know, it's scary. It still feels scary. And it's still like there's
Yeah.
a wall I have to get through. But keep that in the back of your mind when you think about how can we move forward into a world that is a little different. And we've all been kind of had this year of alienation. Part of that has been for many people, especially parents of young children, living in a single family house when you don't have your grandparents or others who can be in your bubble who can help you with your kids is really challenging. I mean,
Thank you. Yes,
it's
it
really
has
challenging.
been really hard
And
for sure.
and our world has been set up that way, and that has become this norm, and it's been pushed on pushed on us as that's the right way to live, when I know, as a matter of fact, it's not, since that's not how I grew up. And I've always been suspicious. So I think it's interesting that now the world is starting to wake up to the idea and the benefits of co-housing. And what co-housing is it's not like communal housing. It's not like everyone lives in a big room or something like that. Although you could do that, I suppose, like a dorm. It's more like where it's a development where there's smaller houses, smaller personal space, which is totally distinct, but then there's also community space, which is more shared. So in this particular co-housing that the article is focused on it's Vindmelbakken in Stavanger, Norway. It's a recently completed co-housing project designed by a well-known Norwegian architecture firm. And it's designed specifically to build on that sharing economy. It can be financially more rewarding to live this way. It can also be a smaller ecological footprint. And it also encourages creating those kinds of social cohesion, social connections, which can be very positive. And this particular co-housing unit has 4 co-living units, 40 co-living units, 4 townhouses, 10 apartments, all of which are privately owned and have their own kitchens, their own amenities, but they're clustered around 5,382 square feet of shared recreational, dining, gardening, and leisure space. So the idea of creating a community that actually has that as an amenity that is shared by the entire group, it gives you both the private, like the room of your own, but it also gives you a place to actually come together. It also allows for sharing and pooling of resources. Because if you think about it, you could design a community like this and also have like a pool of cars that the residents use. Because most of the time our cars just sit in our garages because we're not using them.
Right.
But if you had shared cars and you always had access to them, you could probably balance that out so that, and maybe it means, hey, let's go grocery shopping, and you do it with your neighbor. And that's just, you have somebody to do that with. And that might be kind of fun, right? It means opening up our ideas of what does it mean to have a robust, healthy social life and also a robust, healthy family, home, private life.
Right. Well, and I think, as we look at, upending the economy, upending fast fashion, upending how we live, the idea of having more community experiences, really, people are craving them again, even though we're sort of terrified of them and it causes a lot of anxiety. But people are recognizing that community is such a valuable part of what makes us human, and shared resources, will lift the footprint we have on this, the ecological footprint we have on this world, as well as lift our spirits as we come together. So it's one of those solutions that's economically viable and good for the earth as well.
And also for our health. I mean, if you think about it, you look at like the blue zones, having a rich and dynamic social life is one of the main factors in living long and well.
We could go on and on. I'm realizing, Kristy, we are just like chatting our Tuesday away. We both probably should get back to work at some point.
I know. Okay.
Everyone, thank you for joining us for this chat. We have a few other headlines that we'll reference. Lego has new prototype bricks that are made from discarded plastic bottles. Colombia is declared home of the most beautiful butterfly species in the world. Innovative exoskeleton technology allowed paralyzed race car driver to walk once again. What else do we have, Kristy?
Well, there's a startup that's cutting the ribbon on the world's first lab-grown meat factory. That's controversial for a lot of our audience, but it is part of the food pantry of the future. So it's interesting to see how that's growing. There's a UK bill strengthening protections for animals. I find it funny that we have both of those. There's an app rewarding local shoppers and encouraging community building. Climate justice. Legal experts draft historic definition of ecocide. Interesting there. And keep your white sneakers clean with these tips and tricks so that you don't
perfect on International Mud Day.
Exactly. That's it for today. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the Optimist Daily Update. Summers, you want to take us out?
We promise to continue to share positive solution-based stories about how you can participate in this changing world and ensure it is changed for the good. If you are not yet, please consider becoming an emissary on theoptimistdaily.com. $5 a month. Support us. Do it. You gotta. I mean, you don't have to, but it would be great if you would. All right. Have a great Tuesday, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.